Hey guys, just wanted to post an example here of drawing a vector in 3 dimensions. Again, when you're looking at drawing a vector in 3 dimensions, you want to remember that the ordered triple here is always x, y, z, right? Always alphabetical order, x, y, z. So here we'll be traveling -9 units in the x direction, 4 units in the y direction, and 7 units in the z direction. So when we do that, remember that we're going to travel along each axis those directions. And then we're going to be drawing 2-dimensional boxes or 2-dimensional rectangles that are on each coordinate plane, and then using those to create a 3-dimensional prism. So the first thing we're going to do is travel -9 units in the x direction. So I'll draw a line to represent that, and there's -9 units. Then the next thing we'll do is travel 4 units in the y direction, and that will look like this. And then once we've done that, we can actually draw a 2-dimensional rectangle on the xy plane. Now remember, the x-axis is coming directly out of your screen, right, perpendicular to both the y and z axis. So this line or rectangle is actually going to go into your screen, right? We can only draw it on a 2-dimensional plane, but if you think about it in 3 dimensions, it's actually going into your screen, right? And we draw parallel lines. So we'll draw a line parallel to the x-axis and parallel to the y-axis, like so, and we get that. And there's a 2-dimensional rectangle now on the xy plane. Now we can travel 7 units in the positive z direction. That'll take us to there. And again, we can now draw a rectangle on the xz plane, so the plane that's going into the screen and vertical. And we draw a line parallel to the x-axis and then parallel to the z-axis, like so. So now we have 2 of the rectangles on 2 of the coordinate planes, on the xy plane and the xz plane, and now we can do one more rectangle on the yz plane, right? So we can draw a line parallel to the y-axis from z is 7, and again, this is the plane that is your screen right now, right? This is the one that is represented by your screen, because the x-axis is the one coming out of the screen, but the y and z axis actually do lie on your screen, so it looks like a normal rectangle like that. So you can hopefully now begin to see a bit of how the 3 dimensions work here, and that we're drawing a 3-dimensional shape on a 2-dimensional plane. Parallel lines, though, are the key. You always want to be drawing your lines parallel to one of the axes. So now we have the 3 rectangles on the 3 coordinate planes, and we're going to complete now that rectangular prism in 3 dimensions. So to do that, we have 3 more lines to draw, one parallel to each of the axes. I'll do these in green so it looks a little different. So you see the blue ones are the rectangles in the coordinate planes, and the green lines will be the lines completing that prism. So we'll draw one parallel to the x-axis, like that. We'll draw one parallel to the y-axis, and parallel to the z-axis, like so. And then you can see hopefully all your lines connect nicely at a point so that you can get a good idea of that 3-dimensional rectangular prism. So now once we have that, we can now draw that 3-dimensional vector. Because remember, the coordinates tell us how far to travel in each direction, or how far to travel parallel to each axis. So we can travel -9 units in the x direction. Then we can travel 4 units in the y direction, and then we can travel 7 units in the z direction, and we get to this point here. And that point is going to be your terminal point of the vector, right, or your tip of the vector. And we'll call that here point P. So we'll put point P here, which again is -9, 4, 7. And again, the origin is O. And all we have to do now is draw a line from the origin to that point P, which I will draw in red. And then that will be our position vector OP. So really the whole idea here is that three-dimensional rectangular prism that we draw with all of the sides nicely parallel to each of the axes really gives us this sense of 3 dimensions, of this depth, so that we have an idea here that this vector is actually starting at the origin and going into your screen up and to the right. So the vector here is going into the screen from O to P. All right, so there's an example of how to draw a vector in 3 dimensions on a 2-dimensional plane. Hope it was helpful. Thanks.